Hey everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith and welcome to episode number 61 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. Today we are thrilled to have Erin Fessler on as a guest. Erin Doolin Fessler graduated from Villa Maria Academy in 1984. She then went on and earned her BS degree in communications with a minor in psychology from John Carroll University. After graduation, she worked as the promotions assistant at WSEE TV 35, the public relations director for the Community Blood Bank, and the assistant vice president in corporate communications for PNC Bank. During college, she worked for the university hospitals in Cleveland and CNN in Washington, D.C., where she ran camera for Larry King. That's pretty neat.
That was fun.
She joined the Erie Community Foundation as the marketing and public relations director in 2004. And in 2012, she was named Vice President of Marketing and Communications. And in 2016, she was named the Vice President of Marketing and Community/Government Relations. She is responsible for two major foundation signature events, the ECF Annual Meeting and the annual Erie Gives Day. Erie Gives Day was recognized by the Association of Fundraising Professionals as an outstanding philanthropic event. Erin serves as a liaison for the Foundation's government relations, and with her team, she manages the Foundation's advertising, media relations, press conferences, newsletter, annual reports, and electronic communications, and the website. In service to her community, she serves as a board member of the YMCA Metro Board, the Hammond Health Foundation Board of Cooperators, and as a member of the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership Government Relations Committee. Erin is a founding board member of the Northwest PA chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. She served as treasurer in 2012 and 2013, and in 2014 she was the chapter president. She is a past board member and secretary of the Erie Advertising Club, past marketing committee member for Camp Notre Dame, and former golf coach for St. Peter Cathedral Grade School. In 2024, she was honored as a Women Making History by Mercy Center for Women. In 2021, she was honored and named the Community Relations Person of the Year during the Niagara Awards of the PRSA Northwest Pennsylvania chapter. And Erin, I have to say, this is quite the accomplished bio here.
It was
Welcome
fun.
to the podcast.
Fun. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, and I always make this note, but it's fun to read the background of the people I have on as a guest for the podcast, because I get to learn more about your story, and then also our listeners who maybe know who you are, but not everything you've done and accomplished. It's just a great little spotlight on you.
Well, thank you. That was a nice intro.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see all the amazing things. The first thing I have to say is congratulations on a successful Erie Gives Day.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. Erie Gives celebrated its 14th year, and we did a lot of things that were new this year just to jazz it up, like to keep it fresh and alive and attractive to the media and to our donors. And I think it worked. Midnight to Midnight, new logo. Midnight to Midnight means the website was open that long. The new logo, we have a new phone bank headquarters on our campus. And so the Erie Gives has raised, up until this past year, over $56 million. And last year, Erie Gives raised 8.2. Right now, we're edging towards maybe 9.4 million,
Wow.
9.5 million. So who knows? We're all flabbergasted, overwhelmed. We basically can't keep pace with Erie's generosity.
Well, congratulations on that. Breaking last year's record, right? And continuing to strive for more and more. It's such a neat day to celebrate philanthropy in Erie, and the Erie Community Foundation leading that charge starting 14 years ago, and what it's grown into.
Right. It's fascinating because on the website we have a map of the United States, and we have gifts from, I think, almost all states, like except for 5, maybe like Montana and the Dakotas. And when you look at the gifts, like from California and Texas, and a lot from obviously Pennsylvania, and then Ohio and New York, and people will say, well, how can that be? Well, there's a lot of alumni from the local universities, Prep, Villa, who have moved out of Erie but still give back to their community.
Yeah.
And so by having the website open from midnight to midnight, that helped different time zones were able to give. In fact, we raised from midnight to 8 a.m., which we normally start at 8 a.m., $240,000 for local nonprofits.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah. So it's one of my favorite days at the Erie Community Foundation. It's a lot of work. We start in January, prepping for it, getting all the nonprofits vetted and signed up and getting sponsors. And so, you do that
Yep.
kind of work. You got to think so far ahead.
Yes, you do. It's a lot of planning and, mapping that all out.
Right.
And actually, when you mentioned the, map of the country, I had somebody from Virginia call me and say, will you be participating, listed for Erie Gives Day this year? This was probably a couple months ago. And yes, we will be, of course. And they said, good, the only way I'm going to give is if it's on Erie Gives Day. And I was like, that's so neat. A little plug for you guys that there's
great.
people who literally will just want to support Erie causes on Erie Gives Day to be a part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah. So it's pretty neat.
Well, a lot of people gave by check this year, and we had a check in a magazine that was out in the newspaper. And so that eliminates the credit card and platform fees. But we also had that as a box on the website you could check and you could cover those fees. And I think the number's about 80% covered the fees.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think most people don't realize that somebody's paying for those fees.
Right.
And for me, I'm just aware of that, and I always check that box, when giving to an organization is cover those fees.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great that 80% of the donors covered that too. Yeah.
So it's a good day, and who knows what next year will bring, but this year, I don't know. I think in the future it could hit 10 million.
I think so too.
So, but yeah, if we could be around 9.3, 9.2, something in there, that would really be a statement for what Erie Gives is all about. We all give,
Right.
and especially look at the economy right now and all that's going on in the world, and people still were philanthropic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
We had 3 lemonade stands. We had a couple who were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary, and they threw a challenge out to their friends that if their friends gave $50,000 to any charities they wanted, they would match it with $50,000. Yeah. So there's stories like that are happening. This one lemonade stand, the girls who threw it weren't even alive when Erie Gives was born.
Oh,
and they raised money for the Humane Society, and they did it in honor of Emily Matson. And then ironically, they won one of the $500 grants that we randomly draw throughout the day. And that was to Taylor's Hope, and that is for suicide prevention. And it just was such it's like the stars in the line are all aligned. And I think Emily gave us a little nod, like, I'm still with all of you.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of fascinating stories come out of Erie Gives.
Well, and that's a good point to reference some of those stories because, if you hear, 9 million, maybe 10 million, for Erie Gives Day, it's not just the work of the Erie Community Foundation. Now, you guys are steering the ship. You got it going in the right direction. But it's all those little stories of people behind the scenes getting behind the cause and drawing people to support the mission that helps get those numbers up because it really is a community event.
Sure. We're just a catalyst. We're just the middleman. What comes in goes out. And so then you can say, well, why do we do? Because we invest $250,000 into the bonus bucks. Our board of trustees at the Erie Community Foundation vote on that, and then there's a ton of staff time that goes into it. There's so much behind the scenes that people don't realize. But why do we do it? It's the best introduction to philanthropy. It introduces you to how you can use the Erie Community Foundation. Like, for example, PrEP has an endowment here.
Yep.
And so people can give to the PrEP endowment any time of the year, and that's here forever in perpetuity. And every year, PrEP receives money from that endowment. So it's just a great tool to give back to your community and forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it is a great, like you said, introduction to philanthropy.
Right.
Just get people introduced to what that means and what it's all about. And it's a fun, like I said in the beginning, way to celebrate philanthropy in Erie for a day and get people's attention on that and the needs and the causes and all the different organizations too.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Connect you to causes that matter to you.
That's right, exactly.
Be a philanthropist with just $25. So
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really neat. And, obviously our connection, I know just some family members that you and I are connected with. Yeah. And then, of course, with Prep Villa, brings us together and whatnot. Right. And when talking about, coming on the podcast as a guest, I was excited to have you on, talk about Erie Gives Day and some of the great work you've done. And before we get into some of the career stuff and things here at the foundation, I want to talk to you about even your time at Villa.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Just kind of like, maybe what made you decide to go to Villa Marie Academy and what are some of your favorite memories from your time as a student at Villa?
Sure. So my parents invested in Catholic education, and I started 5th grade. I started at Our Lady's Christian, and then just naturally moved into becoming a student at Villa. And honestly, my mother was a teacher at Mercier's Prep, and I didn't want to go to high school where my mother was a teacher. So Mercier's Prep is a great school too, but Villa was a good fit to kind of spread your wings. And from that, my experience at Villa has left me with an incredible, supportive group of friends, girlfriends, and we take trips, we get together randomly, monthly. We're there for each other when someone has a death or a loss in the family. It's just, I think the Villa education went beyond the doors of Villa, and it really went into your heart and your soul, and you carry it with you. As I mentioned, my daughter's getting married, and when we were looking at creating her wedding program, we pulled out our old wedding program, and a lot of my bridesmaids were my Villa friends, and they're all invited to Emily's wedding. In fact, one of my friends, Ann Riley, her daughter Abby Riley, is in Emily's wedding. So,
neat.
How does those two girls have bonded? And even though Abby grew up in Ohio, there's a bond that comes out of Villa that is unbreakable.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I look back on my time at Prep, and something I think us as alumni between Prep and Villa just share that bond, right? That brotherhood, that sisterhood, but that family environment of just having those connections with each other. And something that, to your point, relationships for life that you've been able to create from your time at Villa that now you have.
Right. And a lot of my guy friends from Prep, when I went to Villa, Prep was like our brother school. We were brother-sister schools. And, I look at her wedding list again, and some of my best friends from Prep are coming to her wedding too. And, that's pretty special to have guy friends after all these years that we did like Teenage Action Club together, ski club together. And here we are now, in our late 50s, and we're still all really good friends. So it's pretty fortunate and much of a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that sticks with you forever, right? And I've talked to people who have gone to different schools, whether locally or from different areas around the state or whatever, and they always make comments like the relationships that you have as alumni, it's just different. Like, our school doesn't even do reunions or this and that, and it's like, it really is. It means something to be a Rambler, to be a Victor, and what that represents for each other.
So, and I recognize that a merge had to happen because you want the future of Catholic schools to continue, and that's hard. It's a commitment to put your child through a Catholic education. But you're giving your child some really strong roots, some really strong bonds. And from what I understand, now that the two schools are together, I'm guessing it's more of a brother-sisterhood relationship that maybe even is stronger than when I was a student at Villa.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were to talk to those current students there today, they would say exactly that. It's more of that family atmosphere, brother, sister, relationship stuff, that they have those bonds together. And I think, honestly, too, one of the things that bringing the two schools together on one campus, it helped us to consolidate resources to give the students the best opportunities.
That's right.
I mean, you look at the work that was done in the Prep building, it's like you wouldn't just do that to one campus while the boys or girls wouldn't get the same opportunities. Where now we're able to invest in one campus, give the students, boys and girls, the best opportunities, the best experiences, the best faculty members, all of that. So,
and it's healthy to be in a co-ed situation, because I remember when I graduated from Villa and I went to John Carroll, I remember the first time I sat in class next to a guy, I didn't know, I didn't know how that was going to be, and there I met a lot of dear friends too, and they came from a lot of the Catholic schools in Ohio. So there is a healthy environment created too. By having a co-ed, because when you go into the work world, you interact with guys and girls. Now, of course, the argument will be, more leadership roles. There are leadership roles no matter where you go, what you do. So
and actually, the girls are the ones running the school nowadays.
Good to hear.
Oh, that's funny. Well, and in reading your bio, it's pretty neat to see all the things you've gone on to accomplish and the different roles and hats you've been able to wear and things you've been able to do. But can you talk to us a little bit about even when you started here at the Erie Community Foundation? I mentioned it was back in 2004. You were marketing and public relations director. I guess what initially drew you to the Erie Community Foundation, working here, and kind of getting started in your position that you've been in now? Well, different positions, but same organization now for many years.
20 years, yeah. They just gave me a 20-year award. I'm like, wait a minute. I must have started when I was 10, right? So I started at the blood bank and then went to PNC Bank. Then we had our 2 daughters, and then I went part-time at PNC. And then eventually I stayed home with our daughters, and that was such a great time of life, and to be with them. And I was fortunate to be able to do that. And I had support of my husband, Donnie, who's a Rambler too. But so when I started at the Erie Community Foundation, what had happened is Ted Junker, that's an older name, he was the president of PNC Bank where I worked. And he knew I was like, my kids were now in school, and he said, do you want to work part-time at the Erie Community Foundation? And so I interviewed and got the job, and so I started off 2 days a week, then it was 3 days, then it was 5 days, but so I was really doing a full-time job, and I was jamming it into part-time hours. But then this job has changed so much. The Erie Community Foundation has changed. I mean, we're a much larger organization. When I first started here, we only did Helping Today grants, which are grants for like a new roof, a new air conditioner, a new wheelchair ramp, new computers. Then we went into Shaping Tomorrow work, Helping Today, Shaping Tomorrow, and that's like big projects, like the $250,000 grants. And then in 2000, right before COVID, about 2018, we started doing transformational philanthropy through the Susan Hurt Hagen Center for Transformational Philanthropy. And those were multi-million-dollar grants that we make, and from that we now have the McGee Women's Research Institute. We have a medical biolab out at Penn State Barron, and that started off with a $6 million grant. And what that's done to Erie is now there's new jobs in the healthcare field at Hammett and new research jobs out at Penn State Barron. We had a major transformational grant to bring a community college to Erie. And now the old villa comes full circle, is an educational institution again. Neat. And that is lifting up people who aren't as fortunate, who didn't maybe get the opportunities, or a single mom who wants to go back and better her career. And you right down the street now is a community college. So the Erie Community Foundation was a part of all of that. So for me to have been here at the Erie Community Foundation this long and just see how it has transformed and grown, so has my career right alongside it. Yeah, so it's kind of fun. Yeah, that is really neat. And it's cool to see how, just hearing a little bit about that background of where the Erie Community Foundation was just 20 years ago. I mean, it's not that long ago. It really isn't. When you were 10, where it was started. Yeah, that's right. and to hear just the steps that the organization has made through the years, and it's cool that you've been a part of that, to be able to see what it's been able to turn into. Yeah, to see how it's grown, and just even Erie Gives. Our first year in 2011, we had 200 donors who raised $776,000. Fast forward to 2024, and we have like 35,000 gifts so far, and we're pushing over 9 million. I mean, I think the more people learn about the Erie Community Foundation and how it's really for long-term giving, building an endowment, it's really just been fun to watch how what you give, the power of collective giving. So you give $100, I give $100, we get a bunch of friends, and now all of a sudden, I can't make a $100,000 grant. I can give maybe $100, but collectively we can give $100,000. Right. And that's real dollars to a nonprofit. Oh yeah. Look what Prep would do with that kind of, look what you have done. Yep. I mean, look at the Salata Center, how that has changed even the corner down on 9th Street to be right in the heart of the city and next to the cathedral. I mean, it's pretty powerful. It's pretty neat. Give back. Yeah, it's pretty neat, especially when you look at like our event center. Yes. So I was a manager there, as you know, for my first stint with Prep,
And you get to meet a lot of different people coming through the facility and a lot of out-of-towners, and they can't believe this is a high school facility.
Yeah.
And they'll ask, like, about how'd you guys get this funded? And you'll mention, like, we had some very generous donors who supported this, and there was no, grants, no government money that funded this. There wasn't tax money. It was all from our donors, and they just couldn't believe that there was donors willing to do something like that.
Right.
And to your point, it's the power of philanthropy and the difference that can be made for the greater good of the community.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it all adds up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, how much fun you must have in this job, being able to do the things you do nowadays. Right. Can you talk to us a little bit about, like, what your role entails today? Because I know it's evolved over the years, and then now there's government relations added to it and whatnot. Yeah. But can you talk to us a little about your role today and what you do for the foundation?
Yeah, so the two signature events, Erie Gives, which we've talked about, and then we have an annual meeting always in June, and that's when we really showcase the work of the foundation, the nonprofit sector. And as far as government relations, that is more of my connection with the Chamber of Commerce and working with the Erie Regional Chamber of Growth Partnership, working with them, kind of keeping up to date on what is happening in our community and how the Erie Community Foundation can take on certain roles.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They're great partners for any business, nonprofit, looking to help the Erie community.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
So
they're a good partner. We have a lot of partners in Erie, and one of them is Infinite Erie, where we have Kim Thomas, who is the executive director. And so now what is happening is Erie is talking to Harrisburg with one voice, and the chamber is part of that conversation, and our local government leaders, so that people from Erie aren't going to Harrisburg asking for money like randomly, that it's all coordinated and unified, and again, one voice. And so Harrisburg is looking at Erie, PA, and what the growth opportunities are here.
Right. Which there's a lot.
Right.
There's a lot of great opportunities here in Erie.
Right. And you want to make it so it's attractive to your generation, young family, and you want to raise your children here and give them the opportunities that you had. Well, we need to bring businesses to Erie so that there are jobs here. And so, and that's part of our grant making, the transformational grant making. So when we look at a big project, what are the jobs that come to Erie? And look at the community college. Yeah. How many professors they have working there. Yeah. So if you just look around your community and see where there are holes and gaps, and that's where we try to fill in.
Yeah. Well, I think Erie is such a fun spot because it's small enough that you can get to know, like, if me and you had a conversation even more extensively, we could say, oh, yeah, I know this person who knows this person who knows you, knows me. Yeah. But it's big enough where there's a lot of different businesses and organizations that if you're not outside of your own bubble, you don't even realize exist.
Right.
And then the more conversations you have in the community, you're like, wow, I didn't even know Erie had that to offer.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You mentioned that I'm part of Erie Global Friends, which is a part of the American Association of University Women, AAUW. And so Erie's changed that. Our culture is changing, and you can see it in the neighborhood. You can see it when you go to the Mill Creek Mall. There's a lot of different culture and growth going on. And part of Erie Global's Friends is we get together on a monthly basis, and we usually hear from somebody who has as a refugee from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Bosnia, Russia. And so I get to meet all these women who come here, and they're raising their families here. And a lot of them are doctors and lawyers in foreign countries, but there's so much war going on or no opportunities. And they come to Erie, and they make Erie better because now we have teachers and and doctors and lawyers and other professionals who come to Erie who come from different cultures. Yeah. And so, I love that part about Erie, that we're becoming a melting pot, and you can learn about others. And that actually can help us disseminate that lowest zip code in the country, poorest poverty. Right. Yeah. So if we didn't have that type of migration to Erie, we wouldn't get as much federal funding. So it's just all circles and cyclical. And so I enjoy watching how Erie is changing and growing and getting better.
Well, it's because of people like you and many others who are leading the charge and making Erie better. You know, it's organizations like the Erie Community Foundation and others who are doing their part in their area, how they can make a difference in doing that. And to your point, when there's several different voices coming together in a coordinated plan to communicate with Harrisburg, it shows a unified front as well.
Right.
Like, hey, this you know, different parts of Erie might have their different interests. However, we all think that this is the right direction for Erie. This is the things that we need to really improve our living environment, the organizations and businesses to be attracted to come here.
Right. We have our act together.
That's right.
That's the message.
That's right. Or at least we all act like we do.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's pretty cool. You've had quite the background in marketing and public relations, communications, and kind of a more, you know, tactical, you know, kind of specific question to for our listeners. But what do you think, how do I say, are the most significant changes that you've seen in the field over the past decade? You know, I'm going to guess especially for the nonprofit sector, because when it comes to marketing, it's like, feels like every hour there's a new thing that comes out about trends and things that we should be doing better as nonprofit organizations and ways to market to the community and whatnot.
Right.
But I guess just given your expertise in this area over the years, what have you seen in this field?
This field has changed dramatically. In fact, when I look at how I would manage our marketing and public relations budget from when I first started to now, you know, we didn't have Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, those are all relatively new. And so there's target audiences on there. And as our donor base changes, we're probably in that stage right now where there are a lot of donors who still like a newsletter mailed to them, but then there are others who want e-newsletters.
Right.
Well, e-newsletters didn't exist 20 years ago. So I always recommend to people who are starting their college careers, take as many classes as you can so that you can learn about the metrics, the statistics, how to do Google Analytics, how to learn about geofencing, advertising, you know. But like for Erie Gives, we did these yard signs, and they worked really well. So that some of the old-fashioned type of advertising works just as well too. So it is interesting. Like there's always new audiences that you can speak to. Because when we first we had the Facebook page, and then I'm like, let's do Instagram. So then we do that. And lately I've been saying, you know, TikTok might be sticking around. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But I noticed the Erie Playhouse has a TikTok channel, and that's a new way to engage with your donors or your audiences.
Right.
So I don't know, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is really interesting. The landscape of how to reach people is the question. You know, it's like back in the day, email was the way to reach people. Now it's like most people don't even check their emails. Like it's text messaging.
Text messaging, right. I know. Everyone has their phone on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. The geofencing is a little creepy, where you have your phone on you and there's an imaginary fence around a building, and they know that you were there, and then they start serving you ads, and
where they call it Big Brother's always watching.
So it's fascinating to me.
I enjoy, I'm not a tactical marketer or do a lot of the specifics with that, but I always find it very interesting to hear, whether listening to podcasts or people who are in the field talk about the ways that things are changing. Because it's, you know, if you're working in a position like me or you where you want to reach audiences and talk to them about, you know, things that are going on in your organization, you're always wondering, how can you do that better? How can you reach more people, right? So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, TV and radio and newspaper still work well too.
Yeah.
But then there's this whole other dynamic.
Correct.
Way to advertise. So.
Yeah. Erie Gives 2025 TikTok.
There we go.
That's funny. And you've been quite involved with various board positions too throughout local organizations and different, you know, places that you've supported. Can you talk about your responsibility with some of those board positions and how they've helped with your role here at the Community Foundation, or just your whole, you know, thoughts about giving back and encouraging others about, you know, serving on boards at nonprofit organizations?
Sure. So we're a small organization at the Erie Community Foundation, and our campus is beautiful, but we're kind of all in these big offices of houses that, my office was once a dining room. And so, so what I like about being on a board is that you get to get out into the community and you get to meet different people who are like-minded in you in the sense they want to serve their community, but they're different from you because they come from different backgrounds, even different cultures, and they come to the table with different viewpoints. And so I always say to those starting their careers, join a few boards, get to know more people. It's the best way to network. It's the best way to learn about different career paths. It's a great way to learn about what's going on in the community. And I don't know, I really enjoy all the boards that I serve on.
Yeah.
And I like going to the board meetings and listening, and then also sharing my experiences, what's going on at the foundation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely something I would highly encourage all of our listeners to, find those nonprofits, those organizations, and I would say between PrEP and the Erie Community Foundation that you want to help support. And we're always talking about how can we find more hands to help support or sit in meetings and talk through, strategy things on things we have going on. Whether it's a committee, that we're putting together, or, like you're talking about various boards you've served on, definitely putting that plug in there to help out nonprofit organizations because they're always looking for people to help.
Right. You can go to the Erie Gives website and see the list of 513 nonprofits that probably could use your help.
Right. There'll be one there that fits what you're passionate about.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's funny. And, it's so cool also, the great work you're doing being recognized. And I wanted to make that point as well. I mean, Women Making History, the recognition you got by the Mercy Center for Women, and the Community Relations Person of the Year. I mean, those are things that I'm sure you didn't seek out. You weren't doing your work to get those recognitions.
Yeah. But
I'm sure once you found out that you were being awarded with those, it felt good to know the work you're doing is making a difference and being recognized.
Yeah, both of those, I was very humbled and honored, and I'm surprised when I received those phone calls. And then when I look at the list of previous honorees, that really humbles you because it's like, wow. But it also validates like, oh, that work is recognized. Even though everything I do is teamwork, it is nice to receive some recognition. And like at the Women Making History, I met a young woman, Shatiri Franklin, and after we've like bonded and became friends, and she became one of our new nonprofits for Erie Gives called Destiny of Our Daughters, and she shared her passion with me when we were together at Mercy Center, and I said, you got to be in Erie Gives. And she raised like $1,800.
Wow.
She's one of the new nonprofits this year.
That's so cool.
So like things like that come out of an honor. And I also call those God winks. Like we were put together at that exact moment, and we're able to like share like what I do, what she does, and make something really happen for her. So, and her nonprofit helps minority girls, I think 7 to 17 or 8 to 18. I can't remember her tagline, but she helps young girls, give them direction to make their destiny, and she introduces them to leaders. She has all kinds of educational opportunities for them to grow and kind of start their path and think about where they want to be when they grow up. Yeah. So that's where I'm flattered and humbled, but what the work I do is teamwork, and also I'm honored because I look at past recipients and think, oh wow, I'm sure I should be in this room, but it is rewarding to feel validated for when you work till midnight on Erie Gives. It pays off somewhere. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think you probably are like me. It's nice to be recognized individually, but you're also accepting it on behalf of a team, right? Behalf of the organization you're working for. And it's like, it's nice your name's attached to it. However, it's not about that, right?
Yeah. It's about all the people you work with. I work with a pretty good group here at the Erie Community Foundation. Yeah. You can hear how loud they are. They're stuffing at Erie Gives envelopes.
Yeah, I know. If you hear any chatter in the background, they're over in the conference room stuffing envelopes still.
Right. So, that's always fun. And then what I try to do too is I try to nominate people for awards that I see young and up and coming hard workers, and be like, they need to be recognized. Yeah. So, So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure the amount of people you've had the opportunity to meet through your position here and see all the different needs in the Erie community and then the people behind them that are helping make a difference.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure it's been pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, our summer interns always bring in a fresh perspective and they bring in new ideas, and they're a little savvier on technology.
Always are.
Yeah, they got Canva down, and
we had a summer intern too, and she was able to whip up stuff that we didn't even think about.
Right.
We're like, glad she came in to help with this.
Right. I love learning from them.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because my degree is getting older, but they're fresh out of school and they know some things that weren't taught when I was at John Carroll.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and speaking of, like, we were mentioning summer interns, but just like the younger crowd, right? So let's say we have some people listening to the podcast now that they're younger professionals. They're aspiring to leadership roles like you have, you've had, and others that you've been able to meet with and see, you know, what kind of brought them to be in a position like that. What advice would you have for people who, you know, they're younger in their career, they're hearing about the work you've been talking about, and they want to make a difference. They want to be a leader in their community, whether it's at the business they're working at or a nonprofit organization. What advice would you have for people who are aspiring to be leaders in their career?
I would say do the best you can with the talents that God gave you, and share your gifts, but also recognize you can learn from those who might be older than you, or I like to say a little bit wiser. We're not older, we're wiser.
That's right.
And just look at every opportunity for a chance to learn, but also to share what you know too.
Yeah.
So, and then just network and connect, and you know, Maya Angelou is one of my favorite quotes. Something like, "No one remembers what you said or did or wrote, but they remember the way you made them feel." And so, if you kind of live your life by that, like, you know, when you're talking with somebody and you're starting up your career, you know, when they walk away, when you walk away from that conversation, you want them to feel like you connected and you had a good experience together, and you never know what will come out of that.
Yeah.
So.
That's one of my favorite quotes as well.
Yeah.
I heard that quote years ago, and it just resonated with me, where I always try to carry that into every meeting, every conversation that I have, whether it's, you know, I'm in work mode or I'm out with the family and I'm meeting somebody new at a birthday party. It's like those things make a big difference. And, you know. Yeah,
and you never know what's going to connect. And I also I have a lot of faith, and I also believe that we have angels looking out for us. And so I don't know, like, I share this story. I had a brother who passed away, and he was born on May 14th, and he was only 2 when he passed. He was born with a hole in his heart, and if he was born today, no problem.
Right.
But back when he was born, 1972, I think, they just didn't have the technology. Anyhow, so that number shows up in my life a lot. We were having an Erie Community Foundation annual meeting. I was really stressed out. I called back and I said, what is the final count? And 514 guests are coming. When Emily, our oldest, was born, and it was kind of a tough road. Wow. She weighed 514. I did the Julie King last memorial race with my family. My bib number was 514.
Wow.
I was having kind of a crummy day. I ran over and bought a Wendy's. My change was $5.14. My mother was having surgery, and I went down to the cafeteria, and my change again was $5.14.
Oh, my goodness.
Almost to the point, like, cashiers, I'll say, "What did you say?" And I think they think I'm questioning the change. But what I want to hear them say, "Your change is $5.14. So my point in sharing that is, I do believe all of us have angels looking out for us, and there's something bigger and better beyond this earthly life.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just want to, when that time comes, be rewarded for working hard and having a good life and putting your family first and your friends first. And work is important, but it doesn't have to be number one.
Yeah.
It's a catalyst to have a good life.
Right.
But it's your family and your friends that you should focus most of your time on.
Right. Your faith, family, friends.
Yep.
I mean, everything you're saying about your faith and angels looking out for you, as you said. I mean, it's hard to not be a person of faith when you have those things happen to you so much. It's like there has to be a God. There has to be the angels looking out for me in order for this to be the thing that keeps coming in my life to give me comfort in times of stress or troubles and whatnot, as you're talking about.
Right.
I mean, I got chills that you're talking about with your daughter and like her weight and stuff. It's so neat.
Yeah, it's crazy how it just appears. And I used to run half marathons, and I had a friend, and he was atheist, and he didn't believe, and we would run and talk about it on our runs. And like he said, I admire that you have faith, but I don't believe. I said, well, what do you think happens? He's like, you're just dead. I'm like, oh, and so
what a way to live.
I know.
Yeah.
And he's a dear friend, good soul, a great guy. But I believe I tie that all back to my Villa education, my John Carroll education, and that's what's rooted inside of me.
Yeah.
I don't wear this on my sleeve, and I don't mean for this podcast to get deep, but I also think there's other faiths and cultures out there, and my friend who is an atheist, I don't judge him. I don't. I just tell him what I believe, and and he has his own beliefs, and I respect that.
Right.
I feel bad because it can bring you such joy when you have faith and realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
And you're not alone because you have faith, family, and friends.
Right. Well, don't worry about getting deep. The last podcast episode I had come out with was Justin Fatica. And so his whole thing was about faith, and he was calling people out on not having faith.
Oh, was he? Yeah.
So you're right in line with where this podcast goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think especially too, when kind of the tagline I say when introducing is sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence, and the huge component to our experiences at Prep, your experience at Villa, that everyone can relate to is our faith. Right. Our faith is that universal thing that brought us all together, and at being at Prep, being at Villa, and the things that makes us different than the rest of the world is that we can celebrate that at our schools and be able to continue to share our faith with others. Yeah, and the students who are at Mother Teresa Academy, a lot of them come from different cultures, and then eventually, the hope is that they go on to Prep Villa, and they learn about the Catholic faith, but then they can talk about their faith too. Yep. And we all learn from each other, and really, when in the heart and the soul of it, it's all pretty much the same. I mean, we might have different traditions and do things differently, but we all believe that there's something beyond this earthly life. That's, if you didn't have that, like my poor running friend, but that's how I see it. Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm big on my faith as well, and it's something I think about all the time, and why I'm passionate about the work I do at Prep is getting kids around that faith environment that they can continue to grow academically, athletically, socially, but also have that faith element to everything they do, and they keep that first. Right. Because there are tough days. Nobody's life is rainbows and butterflies. Everyone has something. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2015, and then I had melanoma in 2020, and those are like the easiest, well, not melanoma, but when you get a diagnosis like that, if I didn't have my faith, I don't know if I would have got through it. Right. And I didn't have my family and friends around me to be supportive. And then when you do lose somebody, that's hard too. Yep. I miss my brother-in-law, Marty Caverman, every day. Yeah. He had thyroid cancer too. Yeah. So, but his thyroid cancer got out of the capsule. So if you didn't have that, like I believe he is in no more pain and he's not suffering. Absolutely. But we miss him too. Right. So yes, it doesn't make it any easier. There's the grieving process here on Earth until we see him again, right? Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So. And I hope my little dog comes running over the Rainbow Bridge someday, and so it'll be a great reunion. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, that's fun. Well, this has been a lot of fun talking with you, Erin, and being able to hear about your background and the things that you're doing here at the foundation, and really making a difference to the whole Erie community. I mean, it's pretty great. It's very appropriate, the Erie Community Foundation, and the work you're doing. Yeah. I have one last question for you. It's a bonus one, okay? Okay. It's fun. I ask all the alumni guests on the podcast this one. But if you could go back in time to your Villa graduation, knowing what you know now, and you were speaking to your class at the graduation, what would you say to your classmates at that time? Wow, that's a great question. Wow. Yeah, we all stood in those white dresses and red roses, and
great memories? Probably. Everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be okay. And, you know, that song by Old Dominion, Life is Short, Make It Sweet. I believe in that too, that life is short, make it sweet. So go enjoy. And then, you know, we all went different ways. And we just had our 40th class reunion for Villa. And it was great to see everyone and how fortunate everyone was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everything's going to be all right. Take the anxiety away. But when you're 18, 19 and you're about to launch, there's a lot of anxiety ahead of you. But it's also really exciting.
Yeah.
And you never know where your life is going to lead you. And I also think there are like crossroads in your life. And I would say this to my kids and to my nieces and nephews. When you're like in your early 20s, when you're through school, those decisions you make may affect the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know, that we got to think beyond where I'm going on Friday night. And what bar am I going to go to? Am I going to the beer garden? Am I going to Plymouth? Am I going to Oliver's? Wherever I'm going. Or the Tap House, or all of the great bars that we have in town. Think about what you're doing, though, like the career you're taking, you know, the first job, your first pay, because that stacks up. Who you meet, who you marry. It all adds up, and there are crossroads in your life, and you know. So if there's a dream and adventure, go for it.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's an old Steve Jobs quote was, you know, you can never connect the dots looking forward. However, looking back, you can.
Right.
So it's exactly what you're saying. It's like those decisions that when you're 20s, even in your late teens, right, when you're 18, 19. Make such a big impact on where your life's going to go and what's going to happen. Where you'll be able to look back and say, "Good thing I made that decision because it led me to meet that person, that led me to this opportunity."
Right.
And
travel
all those
abroad, go see the world, go see the country. You know, even if you get in a van and drive around for a month. I know parents don't want to hear that, however, I think it's one of the best. Even if you study abroad for a semester and immerse yourself into another culture, or if you are not going on to college, still see if you can travel around, go up to Canada, just see what is out there. It's a big world.
Yeah, there's a lot to see.
Yeah, a lot of people to meet and see where your paths cross.
That's right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Erin, this has been so much fun chatting with you. Yeah, having you on the podcast. Congratulations again on a great, successful Erie Gives Day.
Right.
I mean, the amount of attention from the media, social media, and then as well as the yard signs. I mean, it was everywhere, and it was so cool to see because, again, Erie celebrating philanthropy on that day, to get behind nonprofits and organizations they support. It was awesome. And just kudos to you and your team.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it broke all records. It's just unbelievable. I'm still over the moon about Erie Gives.
Yeah.
You always wonder, when is it going to plateau? And we're still going strong.
Still going strong. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on and sharing all this with us.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.